just curious, has anybody here been to a town meeting in the last year or so? Been to any political meeting? See, as I'm thinking that Americans, we are really disconnected from politics. It doesn't matter whether you're liberal or conservative or Republican or Democrat. We are all aloof. We're kind of consumers. We're really out to lunch when it comes to participating in politics, and in my view, this is the cause of much of the political dysfunction today. Now, if we think back, it wasn't always this way. In the 1650s, when the first European colonists came over, there was no government. The British monarchy ruled by a policy of benign neglect. So there was no laws. The citizens had to make up the rules on their own. They had to form their own government. They had to learn democracy by themselves, up close. And that's what happened. Especially in New England towns, they formed governments where they have a town meeting structure, so that once a year, sometimes more often, the citizens would get together and talk in a rational, critical manner about political subjects. Do we need to build a new schoolhouse? Should we build a bridge instead? What's important? They could listen to each other, form arguments, and they could educate themselves on the process of learning how to be good citizens and learning how government worked. It was, as Thomas Jefferson once said, it was a terrific laboratory to teach democracy. It was a terrific school. It wasn't perfect. It was only white propertied males at first. There were no women, no minorities, but it was a world in which individual volunteers could take turns, treasurer, secretary, constable, postmaster. They would volunteer for these jobs and then rotate once a year. So nobody became too entrenched in a position. There was no risk of corruption because they were all switching off duties all the time. This experimenting in democracy helped people, especially to form the Constitution of the United States, and it gave the people the political skill to do something like that. So, what happened? And it's the classic problem of the commons. You have a meeting, it's really a common good, nobody really benefits except the society benefits as a whole. Some people, when the meeting came around, they were busy. They had to work on their barn. They had a sick relative. They had some business enterprise they were working on the side. They would decide not to come. They benefited by being a no-show. The people who did show up at the meetings, they benefited too. There were fewer people there at the meetings, so they had more say. There were fewer arguments. It was easier to get business done. They didn't have the wherewithal to go to the no-shows and say, hey, you have to come to the meeting. There was an idea that people have the freedom to be left alone. Citizenship was never specified in the Constitution. It wasn't until like an amendment when even the word was mentioned in the 1860s, I believe. So over time, these town meetings started to lose power. There were fewer people showing up. People that didn't show could say, well, I won't show there, but I can pay taxes. So taxes became more and more a source of contributions to these people. They weren't volunteering. There were fewer eyeballs watching who was doing what. In the old New England town meeting, people could see who the best speakers were, the ones who could really represent their town. And they could say, we're going to send Charlie or Bill to the county government, the state government, or the federal government. Now, with fewer eyeballs there, it was more the case that politicians were selecting themselves. I'll run for office. And the fewer eyeballs watching to see what was going on, and nobody was really paying attention. Towns lost power. More and more the decisions got moved to the county, the state, or the federal government. Now, if you go to a town meeting in Summit or New Providence, the main issues are garbage collection, dog licenses. They really don't talk about much there. And as we, the citizens, have become really distanced from politics, you have now career politicians who are in it primarily for personal gain, who don't really care about what our needs are because we're not there to meet with them. We don't know who they are. Only half the people bother to vote every 4 years. And even then, the task of voting is often not worth it because the rules have been engineered by politicians in office. They've rigged the rules so once they're in office, especially Congress, there's a 90% chance that they're going to get reelected again and again and again. Some of these congresspersons in office are 10, 20, 30 years. No competitive elections, we lose out. They don't need to listen to us. So, what do? We need to get back to the New England town meeting. We all have to become citizens again. That, I think, entails amendments to the Constitution. This Constitution should require us to be citizens, to show up at these meetings, to learn how to be Democrats again, small d Democrats, to debate issues, to meet with our representatives regularly. This is what we need to do. We don't do this, the nation is in for tough times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.